Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast, the resource for transitional and experienced genealogists who want to create a successful business. I'm your host, Marianne Pierre-Louis. Here you'll learn from professionals all around the world who work in the field of genealogy. Are you ready to get started? Then let's get going. This podcast is sponsored in part by the Association of Professional Genealogists. You can find out more about them at www.apgen.org. Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast. Today we turn to the west coast of the United States, to the state of Washington, to chat with genealogist Cyndi Ingle. Cyndi, welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you very much for having me today.
Let's get started by having you tell us about yourself and give us an overview of your genealogy business.
About myself, I've been a genealogist since high school. It was a project in high school when I was a senior, so it's been 34 years now. And I am the owner and creator and chief bottle washer and everything of Cyndi'sList.com. Cyndi's List is a categorized and cross-referenced index of links for genealogy. It's meant to help people find what they need online quicker and easier. There's currently more than 330,000 categorized links for genealogical research.
So just to give an example for folks, and I find it hard to believe that anybody wouldn't know about Cyndi's List, but say, for instance, you were looking for websites to do with Massachusetts genealogy. You could go drill down to the Massachusetts section, or you could just pop it into the search box, right?
You can pop it in the search box.
Okay.
I'm not crazy about the search engine. I've got a little backstory there, but you can also just go to the categories index. You can scroll down to the United States and then go to Massachusetts and so on, yes.
And then you'll just find a whole bunch of resources about Massachusetts. So do that with any particular topic that you have, and you'll probably find resources that you've never heard of before. You said you started genealogy when you were a senior in high school. How did the transition happen? At what point did you sort of morph into a genealogy professional?
So in about 1998, I had a couple of different commercial entities that were contacting me and wanting opportunities to sponsor Cyndi's List or to put advertising on. And that's when when I realized it was becoming something that could actually make money. It originally started out just as a project or an article that I'd written for my local society, and I'd always thought of it as a volunteer, my volunteer contribution to the genealogical world. Living on the West Coast, I don't get many opportunities to volunteer where my ancestors are from. My ancestry is in the Midwest and back east. And so being able to participate, especially back then, prior to the internet, in societies and transcriptions and indexing projects and all that sort of thing wasn't possible from Washington. So the internet kind of made it a place where I could contribute, even though I lived clear out here on the east or on the West Coast, excuse me. It was my way to contribute to the genealogical world. When the opportunity came up to making a living at this, I turned out to be very lucky in that because I had these sponsors that were interested.
Oh, okay. So you had companies sponsoring the website. Did you also have advertisements on the website? Is that the same thing?
Same thing. What happened, I had 3 different major companies that contacted me at that time and wanted to. It was at the beginning of the big web bubble, when everybody was throwing huge, massive piles of money at anything with the internet, when the internet was really growing and taking off. And that became the catalyst for that, and genealogical interest online, of course, grew at the same time. And so these 3 genealogy companies contacted me, and I ended up going with Sierra Online. That office is up here. They were very friendly. They were the makers of Generation software, which was very similar to it grew out of Reunion for Windows. And so they were my sole sponsor for several years, and it was just any advertising I had was just from them.
Let's start back a little bit, because you had said you just kind of started this as a volunteer contribution. What were you doing for work or to keep yourself busy before Cyndi's List started?
Well, I had worked for many years in banking. I was in international banking here in Tacoma, Washington. And when we decided that we wanted to have a baby, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And so the object was stay home and have I had to go through quite a bit to end up having a baby. So stay home, try to get pregnant, have the baby, be a stay-at-home mom, And the idea of working actually wasn't part of the deal at that point. I had a friend whose little baby I babysat during that time period when I was first creating Cindy's List.
And where did the computer skills come from? Especially in that time period, it's a very brave thing starting a website. Did you already have skills, or was it just interest on your part and you went on the internet and learned how to make websites, and then, it was just all kind of self-driven?
Yeah, my dad had gotten a computer his first computer in 1988, and he bought me a copy of Family Tree Maker for DOS. And that's when I first started using the computer over at his house. I went over to his house and entered my whole personal family database into the software and kept it there. And then eventually, I want to say I got the first computer for us in 92, I think, 1992. And 1995 was when I got a brand new computer with a modem and went online, and that's where Cindy's List started. But to answer the other question that you had, at work, when I worked at the bank, I was in charge of the computer system in the international division. And and this is where two of the things that I think have become very unique skills for me came about. I learned the ins and outs starting at the DOS level and working up with a whole bunch of different software programs at the bank. And I was in charge of training the older staff members there on how to use the computer and now how not to be scared of the computer. And I also wrote the procedures manuals on how to use the different programs, and from the very basics of log in, put in your name and password, do this, do that, and do this in order to use the various software programs that we were using at that time. So I developed all of those skills at that job, and then they came to bear on what I do now.
When did you realize that you could do Cindy's List full time? And what sort of changes happened as a result of that? Did you say, oh, now I've got to be more formal with my bookkeeping? What kind of things happened?
When did I realize that it became full-time?
Yeah, because you might have been doing it full-time before.
That's the thing. And to back up a little bit on the previous question, too, we got the computer in the summer of 1995, and it had a 9600 baud modem and AOL software preloaded on it. And so I went online and taught myself what online meant. I mean, it was basically everything was from scratch. And I started finding things for genealogy on this thing called the internet. I thought it was interesting, so I started keeping track. And in the fall, in September, our local society, Tacoma Pierce County Genealogical Society, we have a get-together meeting where we get back together after the summer and share, show and tell what we did over the summer. And I had this one page of everything I could find online for genealogy. And that was the start of Cindy's List. It turned out to be the quarterly editor came up to me and asked, could I make it larger? And I thought, sure. How many pages? 5 or 6, she said. And from that point, I realized, I'm going to have to categorize them and split them up so they make more sense. The following January, I decided to put online a website. And this was January of 1996. And I thought, I don't know how to do that. I went on through our local ISP's how-to pages, and they had a few things, links out to other sites that taught you how to write HTML. So I learned HTML from scratch. I wrote it all from scratch and created Cindy's List that way, and it went online March 4th of 96. By the fall, I remember advertising the site, and it wasn't advertising, it was telling other people about the site, I should say, through the Root Cell mailing list and a couple other little mailing lists and news groups at that time. And people just started inundating me with it. I mean, our site was a personal website. And then I had Cindy's List was is like one of the things I could offer on the site that might help people. So it was Mark and Cindy's Family Tree. And then this little list that I had of about 1,000 links was Cindy's List of genealogy sites on the internet. That's the long formal name for it. And the purpose was just to share what I had already done, this article for my society, and I might as well make it useful to other people. Well, when people started seeing the links to websites, they would write to me and say, we link to my site, we link to my site. And pretty soon I would sit down and I'd work on it for an hour, then 2 hours every day. And then pretty soon it was 3-4 hours a day. And by the time I was getting sponsorship and doing this in 98, by the time 2 years had come along, the thing had exploded. I mean, the internet had grown exponentially. Genealogy on the internet was growing exponentially, and Cindy's List was just right there at the beginning. And I don't think there was ever a conscious moment where I thought, oh, I need to do this because I've got this business in front of me. The whole thing was just sort of, it was a snowball heading downhill, and it was out of control. And I kept thinking at some point I would catch up. I thought this is going to be something that if I just work 2 more hours a day on it, then I'll eventually catch up with this thing. And here I am 18 years later, and I'm still thinking that way and still acting that way.
Did you ever feel like it was too big? Like you just wanted to stop?
I felt that way several times, yes. I feel that way today. But I think I'm just stubborn enough and I don't know, maybe a little OCD or something enough to keep thinking, well, if I do this instead and this instead, I might, make things a little easier on me. But I also kind of reached a point somewhere in there where I realized, okay, I just need to do the best I can do. I'm not going to always be able to keep up with every email request I get or with every this, that, or the other thing. And so I muddle through on a daily basis.
And how large is the staff that's helping you keep this going on a daily basis?
The staff, that would be me. I've got three Boston Terriers that keep me company and supervise me during the day. But yeah, most people don't believe that it's just me. So that's why I laugh at that.
Yeah, and that's why I said that. It's a huge, huge website that's being maintained at an incredible level on a daily basis. And if only we could donate bodies to you, Cyndi, to help you. It seems like when you started, it was kind of like a chicken and the egg question, or why did the chicken cross the road kind of question, because you were creating Cindy's List and then people were getting on the web and then people are creating websites. So are people seeing Cindy's List and they're like, oh, genealogy, I'll go create a website. And, there were so many different things feeding off of each other at the same time.
Yes.
That everything started to grow exponentially because of probably the people's excitement that genealogical information could be shared on the web, and maybe people started to think about how do I create a website so I can share this, and then the next thing you know, Cindy's got more links.
Exactly. It did kind of go that way, especially early on. And it's not, of course, just the United States. It was worldwide. It was a global phenomenon, the internet and the growth of the internet.
So what were some of the things that you had to learn as a result? You already were a self-starter with the website. As the company's growing, as the workload is growing, did you learn any tricks to make it easier for you to update or to accomplish your daily routine in a more systematic way? Was that part of how you changed?
I did. I had to teach myself HTML. I had to learn early on. I read a lot of books on web design and, learning about color schemes and things that are easier, learning about the different uses. I've had to learn about the audience, who the audience is that is reading this. I mean, I remember one of the mistakes I made early on trying to decorate my site for Christmas. This was like the first year where I think it was a red background and Santa Claus and some various things. And it was something a lot of people did back then, was monkey around with different, the way that their site would look. And it was back in the very rudimentary days before things were slick and pretty as they are now. And I had a gentleman that wrote me and said, you couldn't read anything on the site because it was red and he was colorblind. And so I remember learning a lot early on about web design and about what to do and what not to do to make it easier for people to utilize the site. I had tricks. There's different software programs I've used during the year to try to make it easier, and I ended up finding that simpler was better. I've got a plain text editor called NoteTab Pro that I used for 15 years just writing HTML by myself. And it had some little link code things that I could type in that kind of shortened some of the snippets of code that I had to use behind the scenes. That was one tool that I ended up using. Trying to remember some of the rest of them. I've gone through so many different things. One of the things I was inundated early on and continue to be with email. And so I've had to learn a lot about filtering email and about, ways to kind of keep some of it at bay because I can't answer everybody. At one point I was getting up to 600 emails a day. And that was making me crazy. And so I put up a lot of roadblocks to that, a lot of frequently asked questions, a lot of, I can't help you with this, this, and this, because working on Cindy's List is what I do to help people. I can't necessarily help with research questions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a common actual issue for all genealogy professionals, no matter what they do.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Because people are constantly emailing and saying, can you help me with this? And then it takes a lot of time to help people. And then if you have a lot of people emailing you.
And early on, I did help a lot of people. And I can remember helping one person where I spent, probably a couple hours doing a bunch of research for them, both in some of my personal collection, but also online, and never getting a reply, never getting a thank you, never getting any of that. And that's when I realized, okay, I can't keep doing that. My contribution to help them has got to be Cindy's List, and that's got to be enough for people.
Did you make that part of your FAQ to mention that you wouldn't be able to help people with their research?
I did. That was one of them in there. And I kind of explained that, Cindy's List is my way to help you. And if you need to learn how to, I think in my FAQs, it says if you need to learn how to do genealogy, I have a beginner's category. If you've got, specific questions, you can go to the different categories for your topic, whatever it might be, a locality, a record type, whatever. So yeah, I did. The FAQs were one way to kind of keep that at bay. I also made my email link on the site goes to an email page that talks about, I can't always answer all the emails and here's why, and goes into, the help that I offer, which I can't, is Cindy's List rather than helping personally.
This is a really interesting topic that I'd never really thought of too much before. And you're kind of making the cogs turn in my mind. And I'm just thinking about what genealogists could do to help free up their time. And I love that whole deflection thing that you just suggested there about, in your case, it's perfect. Here's the beginner section of Cindy's List. But what other professionals could do is suggest other resources external to themselves. And if they don't want to refer to other resources, they could create a website themselves and put the information up that they don't want to answer for all their questions if they have a particular niche that they really want to keep to themselves, so to speak.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it can be one way to deflect, and it can also be a way to help, I would think, to help draw in more business for them if they wanted, having to kind of show a little bit of their expertise and being able to say, this is my first line of contact with you, is that we're going to start you here, here, and here. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, it's really, you're really making me think, because I'm thinking, wow, you could create a website or a blog that has all this thing. One of the resources a genealogist could put would be a link to Cindy's List, but other thing could be specific specific information that relates to their expertise. And they could say, explore these resources first, and you could have like 1, 2, or 3 tiers. And then you say, okay, after you get through that third tier, if they happen to be a researcher, then you could say, well, why don't you consider hiring me to do some consulting for you?
I think that some professionals, this is my gut instinct here, is that some professional researchers who do research for others probably think if they put something like that up, that they're actually giving it away for free. The way I view it is it's a great marketing tool to put up some of that and to show that they've got experience, that they're not just putting something up because they're trying to entice people, but here's actually what my background is.
Yeah, and I love that whole concept of sort of educating the audience that is coming to your website and saying, look, I'm giving you tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 for free. This is all for you. Take what you want. But if you need more, then you can pay me. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot. Wow. This is so great, Cyndi. You're just inspiring me here.
Oh, good. It's funny because my contact page on the website now, you don't see my email address anywhere on the site until you get to the end of the contact page. And it's because that 500 to 600 emails a day, at some point, I'm trying to remember when it was, probably around 98 to 99, when I was getting 500 to 600 emails a day, I would spend more time answering emails and dealing with email than I was actually spending on the website. And it was too much. And I realized I'm defeating my own purpose. I remember around that time period thinking, this is not, am I going to help people with research, or am I going to work on Cindy's List and that be my help? And I need to define where that line is for me. I tend to be one of those people that can't say no when I'm asked a question, or can't say no when it's, would you mind helping me with this or this? And so I had to kind of tighten up my available time by saying, I'm not going to answer these kinds of emails anymore. They can read the frequently asked questions. They can come to at that point, I think it was an email me page, and read all of the stuff beforehand. And then my email was way down at the bottom. If they truly wanted to contact me, they could at that point. And that helped a lot. I think my email went from 500 to 600 a day down to about 200 a day at that point.
I don't know how much email I get. I certainly don't get that much, but all it takes is one person with kind of a big question. And then you think, oh, let me just see if I can find something. And the next thing you know, 3 hours later.
I remember one lady wrote me during that time period and said, you sure make it hard for us to email you. And I was thinking, yes, I do. And I do for a reason. I think she kind of missed the point.
But the funny thing is I put my phone number all over the internet. I've got it on my Facebook page and my website and such. That's direct contact. And I get maybe 2 unsolicited phone calls a year just out of the blue from somebody who actually saw it and called me up.
That's not too bad.
No, I'm surprised, because it's out there, but nobody calls me. I think there's more fear voice to voice than there is with an email. But I had a woman actually from Washington call me. She had found my Fieldstone Common podcast, and she had some questions about colonial history books. She was looking for some more titles because she had a book group at a library or something. And she just called me up, and at the end she said, "That's so cool that your phone number's there and I can just call you."
That's funny.
It was pretty funny, but I mean, luckily for me, not too many. I like to get phone calls, but if I had 10 a day, I'd probably take my phone number off.
Yeah. It's very distracting, that's for sure.
Well, you have Cyndi's List, but it's only one part of Cyndi as a genealogy professional. You also have written books. You do public speaking. I'm sure you've probably also written articles. Tell us a little bit about the other side of what you do.
Well, as you probably know, Marion, whenever you are at a genealogical society meeting and you stand up and start talking about the topic, you are, from that point forward, you are the expert on that topic, whether you want to be or not. And that's kind of what happened that September of 95 when I got up and shared that one page of everything I could find online for genealogy. The quarterly editor had written the article, and then I was asked if I could give a presentation to my society about how to use the internet for genealogy. And so I put together a handout. I'm trying to remember how many pages that thing was. I think it was 13 to 16 pages. It was very large, breaking down. And what I had to do at that point, because this was very, very new internet, was try to figure it out myself. And I read several articles. I bought a book on how the internet worked at that point, and just all self-taught, and put together this really comprehensive handout and then gave a presentation. I was scared to death the first time I did one, and it went very well. And I remember, I still am kind of surprised that I was this brave, but I remember I sent that handout to Genealogical Publishing Company in Baltimore and said I wondered if they would be interested in doing a beginner's book or a book on how to get online for genealogy. And let's see, that was in 96. Cyndi's List was getting bigger, and I realized this thing was growing like crazy. I still am surprised that I was brave enough to do that, but they came back. They were very interested. And so my first book was called Netting Your Ancestors. It was published in 1997, I think, if I go back, and my brain's getting old. And the book was a huge success. It was one of the top sellers that they had. And it was very rudimentary. And every once in a while I see there's a copy still floating around out there. And I've thought about updating it in my spare time. I need to do that. They also asked, and this was in 1998 and again in 2000 or 2001, they asked if they could do a printed version of Cyndi's List. And so GPC published both of those. And I was a terrible marketer on both of those because I thought, well, if you really wanted the Cyndi's List, you'd get it for free online. I wasn't sure why books would sell, but they did okay. They ended up selling more in the library market and places that kept reference materials. The first volume had 40,000 links, and the next one had, I think, it was a 2-volume set that had 80,000. So those books, and then my last book was Planning Your Family Tree Online. It was how to create a genealogical website for yourself. They all kind of grew out of my previous professional background, as I mentioned, in banking, where I was teaching the older people in our department how to use computers and having to write procedures manuals for it. I took everything that I knew there, because that's kind of where our audience generally is. It's getting much younger and younger as we move on in genealogy. But at that time, it was a lot of older people that were trying to learn, trying to wrap their heads around how to use the computer, first of all, and then how to use the computer online. So my speaking grew out of that book and out of the programs that I'd done for my local society, because I was asked then to speak for the Seattle Genealogical Society and then more of the local societies. And the speaking grew like I think any other professional speaking career does. It kind of grows out of that, from the local going larger and larger. And my trick, or my expertise, has always been using technology for genealogy and how to make it productive and how to be organized at it. And so that's kind of where I've started. And then it's just grown from there through the years. So yeah, I speak, I travel. It used to be, once, twice a month for genealogy conferences and seminars all around the country. And I've been to the UK and Canada speaking there, spoke on a couple of cruises too. And I've been fortunate that in doing all of that, I mean, I love when I'm with our fellow genealogists, when I'm with them and helping them learn how to tackle this thing and how to make it a productive and easier tool for them to use in their research. I really enjoy it.
You mentioned that when you did that very first talk that you were really nervous, that you were scared. And yet at the end of the talk, it was a success. Was it the success that kind of pushed you forward, made you want to do public speaking again? Were you still nervous? How did it progress in terms of public speaking? A lot of the people listening out there are a little nervous about attempting public speaking, and I'm just curious how long it took for you to get comfortable, or did you find, it wasn't so bad and you just decided to keep going on with it?
When I was speaking for my local society, it was not quite as bad as the next time that I spoke publicly. Well, actually, the second time might have been out in Ording at Heritage Quest Research Library. The biggest one, though, was at the beginning, was the Seattle Genealogical Society. I think there was almost 400 people there, and I was scared to death. So my solution for that, I'm not a shy person, and I tend to be kind of a smart aleck and try to be funny most of the time. And so I thought, well, I know what I'll do is I'll turn this into something that makes me comfortable. And so the very first lecture I did there, I came out in my purple bathrobe, my bunny slippers, and a couple of curlers in my hair, and had the audience just laughing hysterically. And my opening for that was, what, isn't this, guys, how you research when you go to the library? And they, no. Isn't this how you dress when you go to your local family history center and do research? No. And I said, well, this is how you get to dress when you're doing research online. And from that point forward, I was very comfortable, because I relaxed, they all relaxed, and then we went forward from there. And I found that I just sort of treated it like I was talking to a group of friends, and I enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it, and the response back, people coming to me and saying, "This is great stuff. This is, can you come and speak for our group? Can you come and do this?" And just the great feedback I was getting, it really encouraged me. And I don't think I was nervous again after that. I did take my bunny slippers and my bathrobe with me on a few trips here and there. Eventually, my suitcase got way too full with other things, cords and cables and technology things, to take all that with me. But that's how I started out, keeping my nerves at bay. I love it. I absolutely love speaking and traveling and talking with people. We don't get to do that in person very often, be with our fellow genealogists, at least not out here.
That's such a great technique. I love that you broke the ice for yourself and for the audience, and then you could just carry on and have a good time. So it's a really great technique for anyone who's listening. Maybe you need to think of something that you could do to help break the ice with your audience. Exactly.
And I think not being so formal, I think it being more of a friend in order to teach certain things. I think when things get a little bit too stuffy and formal, that's kind of how the audience reacts too.
Cyndi, what's been the most challenging aspect of being a genealogy professional from a business point of view? I mean, things have grown and grown and grown over time for you. What's been the hardest part?
There's several things that are hard, but I think not realizing until, I was well into it that it was going to become a business and be something I needed to do to earn money. realizing that the administrative part of the website and doing, if I could, I would love to do nothing but sit and categorize links and visit websites and put them in all the little places I like to put them. But I have to spend a whole bunch of time doing, the bookkeeping and dealing with advertisers now and trying to learn, the affiliate channel and in advertising and doing a whole lot of behind the scenes stuff that most people don't even hear me talking about ever. That takes a lot of time. There's a whole lot of education that goes into, well, how does this work and how does that work? And am I using the website to its best potential if I go down this path rather than this path when it comes to advertising and that kind of thing. And I realized it needed to make money after I'd had the sponsor, of course, but when I was working 8 to 12 hours a day, and I still work usually 12, sometimes more than that, hours a day, I realized this is my full-time job, and so I need to treat it as a business at that point. It didn't seem to be a very abrupt decision. It sort of grew on me, but when I realized that I needed to do that, the admin behind the scenes drives me crazy. I wish I didn't have to do any of that, but I don't have anyone else to do it. So I'm the marketer, I'm the advertising person, I'm the bookkeeper, I'm everything, as well as being the content manager for Cyndi's List.
I just want to go back to the affiliate links aspect that you mentioned about, just because there are people who aren't going to be familiar with that. The people who probably do know about that are bloggers. And just for everyone who's listening, in case you're not familiar with it, there are what they call affiliate links. So, for instance, if I write a blog post on this show, the podcast, The Genealogy Professional, and when somebody mentions a book, I can get an affiliate link from Amazon.com. And that means if you go to that link and you buy the book, well, what it means is they give me about 5 cents. It doesn't come out of your pocket. Yeah. It doesn't come out of your pocket, you the buyer, but they give me that tiny amount in recognition that the link came through me. So that's what affiliate marketing is. There's more than just Amazon.com. And Amazon is actually one of the I don't want to say worst, but I'd say the least gain that you can get. There are other companies. You can get affiliates for Ancestry.com, all sorts of different companies where you can actually get paid more than Amazon.com. But so do you want to add anything to the whole affiliate discussion?
Amazon was one of the earliest ones that had an affiliate program. It was one of the first that I had joined. But yeah, you join, you agree to the terms of their affiliate program, and you're saying that you're going to advertise their products on your site through either banners and graphics. And Amazon's got little widgets for different things to help sell books that are of interest to certain people, or text links. And that's the majority of what I end up having. I have that and the banners, where there's a bit of code that's in the link. And so if you click through on the link and you go to a site, say it like on an Ancestry affiliate program, you clicked on one of mine and you go through, and then you end up deciding that you want to pay for a subscription or buy something through that site, then I get a commission. And so it's no skin off your nose as a user. And in this case, Cyndi's List is free for everybody to use. It always has been. And so there's no charge to come in and use it. But the way that I ended up getting the advertising income is by if someone clicks on a banner or a link and spends money, then I do get a commission on those things. So every affiliate program is different. The amount that they pay out is different. There's pay per clicks. There's pay for views. And then there's actually paying a commission on sales. So it depends on the program how much you can end up making on some of those.
And there's a lot more involved with affiliate marketing than what we're talking about. To be a successful affiliate marketer, it could be a full-time job. Just really
it is a full-time job.
Understanding what each vendor, like Ancestry or Amazon, what their restrictions are.
That's right. There's terms of use that you have to adhere to. There's all sorts of affiliate marketing seminars and books and websites and all that to learn all of that behind. And there are some people that do make that their full-time job, just learning the ins and outs of all the marketing. And, do you place ads here or here? Which size makes more money? Which size is more clickable? All of that. There's a whole lot that goes into it.
Yeah, and I mention that because you might think, oh, this is great. I'll get some affiliate links to Amazon.com and I'll put them on my website. But unless you really, really keep up with it extensively, it won't amount to much. And so don't be surprised, because I get, of all of my websites, and I know this is because I do it wrong and I don't pay any attention to it at all, I get like $20 a year
Yeah.
from Amazon.com. I've never gotten a penny from Ancestry. So it's not as easy to do affiliate marketing as people think. When you just put that little link on your blog or your website, you think you're going to have easy money all the time. And there's a lot more to it than that. I haven't spent the time to figure it out, and that would probably be I'm an example of somebody who does it completely wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think that for me, what I do is I spend a lot of time on the content, and I focus solely on the content and making it easy to use, making it attractive, making it something that's I'm not driven by the marketing. And because I'm driven by the content, then the affiliate program has been very successful for me. And I think that's the difference. I think there's a lot of people that go into it and they spend tons of time learning the affiliate end of it, learning the marketing side, and they spend so much time on the marketing end of it that they're not really focusing on the genealogy part of it. And then they wonder, well, why am I not making more money? Well, if you're not reaching the genealogists to begin with, they're not going to then be clicking on the links that you're trying to earn the money from.
If somebody wanted to learn more about this whole affiliate marketing thing, what would you suggest? Do you think the best thing is to spend the time like in the terms of service for Amazon.com, or is there a particular website that you can go to that's good and trustworthy?
I don't really have any specifics.
Okay.
I know there's a ton online about it, and I know you have to kind of be careful where you spend your money even on the education part of it, because it's a huge moneymaker for a lot of industries out there.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. There are shady companies in this realm.
That's right.
Yeah, so maybe just if you decide to go into this sort of thing, just spend an awful lot of time at the Ancestry terms of service or the Amazon.com terms of service and really, really understand what they're telling you to do.
And that's the terms of service for the affiliate program,
right.
Not the terms of service for the site itself. Yes.
Exactly. All right, let's switch over to the topic of volunteering. This whole thing started because you were volunteering. I know your volunteering has morphed in different ways. You've probably been involved at the national level over the years in one capacity or another. What have you done for volunteering across your career, and how do you balance that, your time with, work versus volunteering?
Boy, it's a tough one sometimes to balance, especially when there's deadlines for things that all happen all at the same time. And they always seem to do that. It's Murphy's Law, I think. I served on the board for the Tacoma-Pierce County Genealogical Society. I was their first webmaster and created their first website and ran that for many years, and a couple of different mailing lists for the society. I ran this Genealogical Speakers Guild mailing list when it first came out. I served for 5 years on the National Genealogical Society board. That one was a lot of time dedicated to that. I'm currently the FGS, the Federation of Genealogical Societies, publications chair for the 2015 conference. And I've also just spent a lot of time here and there helping people online through either mailing lists or message boards, and that early on to now Facebook for genealogy, helping people with some research questions. I think, for one thing, working with people on a daily basis helps keep me in the know about what it is they're looking for, what it is they want to find or hope to find online, and it helps me to understand who my users are. So I feel it's important to keep that contact with helping people with some research questions. I usually try to do 1 or 2 a day. And I've had some great ideas come out of those sessions of helping others with their research and think, okay, this person maybe needs this or that. And so I'll go out and create a new topic for Cyndi's List or a new category. I've also gotten some good blog article ideas out of that. What is it people are trying to learn and trying to do? And so it's all been, the volunteer side of it that way has always been relevant to Cyndi's List as far as keeping me in contact with the people that are actually using it on a daily basis. As far as balancing it out, I've learned, I did not know how to say no. And I've learned how to do that finally. It took me probably 15 plus years. But to realize I want to contribute, as I mentioned earlier, when you live on the West Coast, and you don't have this problem, Marion, where you are in New England, you're very close to many major repositories that you can use for your genealogical research. I don't know if your own personal family history is in that area, but you probably can run to some cemeteries and do some research that way. Where I am, all of my ancestors came from the Midwest and from the East Coast. And so I don't have that ability to go into the repositories and do the help and such. So again, spending the time online and volunteering it from afar has been what works for me to contribute back to the genealogical world as it is. I did get myself in for a few years in just way over my head with too much. When I was doing just as much work on Cyndi's List as I was on my genealogical volunteering, I realized, okay, I need to lower the one if I'm going to be able to keep up with the other.
What's the most fun project that you've ever worked on that you can share with us? This could be a speaking engagement, it could be a book, it can be an article, or it can be something you did for Cyndi's List. The
most fun project? There's been, I think early on creating it all was a lot of fun, and I didn't know any better as far as how large things were going to get. I did upgrade Cyndi's List in June of 2011. The new version of Cyndi's List went online, and for the first time after 15 years, it was behind a database. Prior to that, it had been individual web pages, and I hand wrote all the HTML for 15 plus years, which a lot of people think was insane and kind of crazy, but it's what worked for me. I had a lot of little tips and tricks that I used to make it a little easier behind the scenes. When I decided in 2010 to invest the money, and it was a lot of money to invest in having the entire thing brought into a database, and then a custom interface was made for me to maintain the site behind the scenes, and then the whole, what you see there today, the kind of the glossy, pretty package that it's all held in, that took about 10 to 11 months to do. And it was like revisiting a lot of the stuff that I'd done early on and a lot of the things that I learned early on about how to run a website. And it was very renewing for me to go through all of that and to clean up certain areas of the site that had always bothered me that I couldn't change, and to fix some things. And it was sort of like giving birth again to this website 15 years later. And I really enjoyed it. And it's pretty nerdy because it was a lot of indexing stuff and a lot of really boring. I mean, what I do is very tedious and very detail-oriented behind indexing things. It's not a lot of fun. I had one volunteer person that helped me for a while, and after about 2 weeks, she said, well, this is really boring. I said, yeah, it is, but I like it. I don't know. I think it's the way my brain works. So when I was upgrading the website, I think maybe that was the most fun I'd had here. You must have statistics on your website. What are the top one or two categories that people search for, that people land on when they go to Cyndi's List? Usually I do have stats. I don't focus a lot in the same way that I focus on the content more than I focus on how am I marketing it or how am I reaching. Every once in a while I go in and look and see, well, where are people using the site? What is the most interesting? And I try to focus on that. And it does tend to be, I think it's the word immigration or ships passenger list tends to be one of the biggest ones, and the census. I mentioned earlier that the search engine on the site makes me crazy, and I fought it for many, many years. I did not want to put a search engine on the site. The purpose of Cyndi's List is to categorize links, categorize and cross-reference them in categories specific to genealogy. And so on if you go to Cyndi's List and you click on the categories link, I've got over 200 categories for genealogy. They're locality-based, ethnic, religious, record types, methodologies, etc. Just about anything you can think of for genealogy, there should be a category in Cyndi's List. And so it kind of defeats the purpose by using the search engine to go look. And yet people still want that quick, immediate fix. They want to plug in something and have something come back, plug it into a search form and have it come back. So I balk at the search engine, but it also does give me some of the background information that you were asking about. So this frustrates me. One of the biggest things people will search on in Cyndi's List is the word genealogy. And it's like the whole thing is genealogy. That's redundant. You don't need to do that. When it's past that, then the other thing is census records, vital records, ships and immigration, and cemeteries. Those four seem to be the top categories that get the most attention right off the top. Well, that seemed to make sense, I think, because beginners certainly are going to be searching for those categories because those are the ones that you learn about first. Yes. So that makes sense because there's more beginners and more new genealogists than there are exactly experienced genealogists. Let's take a quick break to hear a message from the Association of Professional Genealogists.
Hi, I'm Kathy Damaris, the Vice President of the Association of Professional Genealogists. The very first step I made towards my career as a genealogy professional was to join APG. At that time, the idea of researching for clients was just the spark of an idea in my mind. My APG membership brought me into contact with the best minds in the field and helped me learn about the array of educational opportunities available and the steps I needed to take to reach my goal. My first clients found me through the APG membership directory, and many of my clients still find me there. After a lot of education and hard work, I now have a full-time career as a professional genealogist. My membership in APG is one of my most valuable business assets. If you are thinking about a career in genealogy, I hope you'll join us too. Please visit us on the web at appgen.org, apgen.org.
All right, Cyndi, it's time to change the pace a little, quicken things up, and it's time for us to enter the lightning round. Are you ready?
Oh, gosh, I hope so.
Okay. What was the one thing you were most afraid of in starting your business, or at least when you realized that you had a business on your hands?
I was afraid I wasn't going to have time for a personal life, and that was true.
Oh, no. What is the best advice you've ever received from someone else?
I think, I'm not sure if I've gotten specific advice, but I think just about education. I think education is the best thing we can do for ourselves in either genealogy in general, but also in being a professional.
What is one specific action listeners can take in the next 24 hours to help them transition into a genealogy career?
I'm going to say the same thing, education. Sign up if they haven't already done it. Sign up for some courses, go to some conferences, some seminars. Education, always.
Do you have a productivity tool or an app that you love and you can share with our audience?
Oh, I'm an Evernote junkie. I love Evernote. And in fact, I've got a category for Evernote called Evernote for Every Genealogist. I've created some templates that I share with people that they can use them there. And I just recently started an Evernote for Genealogy blog.
What is your preferred social media channel?
Facebook. I still find Google Plus to be a little bit awkward to use. And there's more professionals, I think, probably on the Google Plus side than there are the everyday genealogist. And so I tend to use Facebook because I'm trying to stay in touch with the everyday genealogist.
Well, I would say that Dear Myrtle has single-handedly changed that since she started her Monday noontime Google Hangouts on air. There are thousands of regular genealogists over on Google Plus now following her. So I think there's more than there used to be.
I'm sure you're right. I don't spend a lot of the time there myself. Yeah. I probably need to do more.
Oh, it's the social media time sink.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can recommend one book for our listeners, what would it be?
Well, I think ProGen. I think everybody should have that.
Give me a second book. Everybody says ProGen. We love ProGen, but it can be anything. It can be a business book. It could be something you've read for fun. It could be something to do with websites.
Wow. And I haven't read a lot of books lately on website design or whatever. I did a lot of that in the beginning. For me, it's just really a lot of the usual genealogy books, Mastering Genealogical Proof by Tom Jones and ProGen. Sorry. I'm a little boring that way, I think.
That's all right. We'll let you off the hook.
Okay.
All right. Our last big question here. It's a topic called Tips from the Pros. And you, of course, being the pro. If you could give 3 quick tips, either related to how to keep links on a website up to date or how to just keep a website up to date in general. And what kind of tips do you have? Do you have any time-saving tips or just tips to make it not so scary?
I think the biggest tip I've got is to try to keep things as simple as you can. I think when people overthink things and try to cram a whole bunch of things into one web page or into a website, things can get very cumbersome and very difficult for people to come in and then use your site. You should always try to put yourself in the user's shoes and view it. And this is something I think I see on a regular basis as I'm indexing sites. People are so aware of what their own content is and what their site is about that they forget what it looks like from the user's perspective. And so looking at it and maybe having somebody else that isn't a genealogist or somebody that isn't familiar with your site come in and look at your site for you and give you a different perspective on it, I think it'd be a really helpful thing on any professional website or genealogy website in general.
And of course, you gave us that excellent advice earlier about the color, and to keep in mind that colorblind people might be.
Oh, and I preach a lot about some of that, but dark font on a light background, period. For websites, that's what it needs to be. We got to remember we're not here to make things pretty and entertain, and that was a very early lesson for me. But we're here to try to help someone with their research, and looking at something that's got a bright background with a white font can be very hard to read. So, dark on light is the way to go.
Give our audience one parting piece of advice, and then tell us how we can get in contact with you.
Well, don't email me, for one, for contact with me. Cindy'sList.com. Use the site. As far as advice on a professional level, again, know your audience, understand who it is you're trying to reach, and focus on your content. And I think if you do that, rather than focusing on the business end of it and the marketing end of it, I think you're a lot more successful. That would be my tip.
I agree. I think that Cindy's spot on with the focusing on the content. However, just keep in mind this is a business show, so don't ignore the business part.
No, I'm not saying ignore it, but I think that some people focus so much on the business end of it that they forget that, what is it that is going to bring someone to your website or to your business or to what it is you do. If you demonstrate that through how you reach out, I think the rest of it follows.
Right. Content is king. And you have to put quality out there no matter how you're doing it, whether it's speaking or writing or on the web. Definitely. Well, Cyndi Ingle, thank you so much for coming on the Genealogy Professional Podcast today.
Marian, thank you for having me.
Well, that was an incredible interview with Cyndi Ingle. She let us peek behind the scenes of Cindy's List. She makes it look so easy maintaining a website of that immense size, and it provides such value to the genealogical community. And it was nice to be able to see how much work and how much effort and education that it takes on a regular basis to pull that off. It was fun to learn about her background in banking and how those skills develop into skills she could apply to Cindy's List. And it was very interesting to learn about the first sponsors that she got for Cindy's List, and also how she applied affiliate marketing to her website as a way to help pay for the amount of work that she was putting into the site on a daily basis. There were so many different things that Cyndi talked about. She also talked about getting comfortable with public speaking, and that was really fun to hear from her point of view, how she was nervous when she started and how she was able to overcome that. And also the aspect of having to be every role in your business. Cyndi likes to work on the website and providing the links and the value for everyone, but she also has to do bookkeeping and deal with affiliate marketing links and administration and all this kind of behind the scenes stuff. And that's what goes along with this type of business. We have to wear many different hats. I hope that everyone can appreciate, particularly from listening to Cyndi, the great variety of effort that goes into pulling off these things that we often take for granted in the genealogical community as resources that we use on a daily basis. Cyndi touched on both volunteering and the need to turn her 12-hour days into a real business. She was incredibly generous during this interview in giving us that real behind-the-scenes look at Cindy's List in a way that probably most people haven't had before unless they've had a private conversation with Cyndi. Because I ask my guests to be so transparent with me about their businesses, I thought I would take a moment to give you an idea of what's been going through my head this year. As many of you know, I stopped doing the podcast over the summer. So here's the backstory on that. At the start of the year, I was doing 2 shows every single week, the Genealogy Professional Podcast and Fieldstone Common, my other show. Together, that took me at least 20 hours a week to pull off, if not 30 hours. What you may not know is that I don't get paid to do either of those shows. I actually have expenses to pay. I have to pay for the websites, and I also have to pay for the media hosting. The media hosting costs me $50 a month, every month, just to provide these shows. So these podcasts can actually be classified as volunteer work because, I don't get paid to do them. So on the one hand, I think I just burned out doing 2 shows a week, and I needed a break. And I saw the summer as an opportunity to take that break. In addition to doing the 2 shows, I've been doing a lot of volunteer work for organizations within the genealogical community. So beyond the content that I create on my own, things that I do for like the New England Regional Genealogical Conference, organizations like that. So that's one of the reasons that we talk about volunteering on this show, so that we can keep it in perspective and try to keep it in balance. And I was clearly losing the battle with balance. My unpaid work was far exceeding my paid work. Some people don't have to rely on their genealogy income to contribute to a household bottom line. And then there are those of us who do. This year, I realized that I've got to do more to pull my financial weight at home. I started to come to the realization of just how much unpaid volunteer time I was doing, and that I would have to change things. I just couldn't keep going at that pace. So the combination of doing 2 shows and the stress of needing to achieve a financial bottom line really wore me out. And I lost a lot of my energy because of all of this. So I'm working to change all that, and that's really what this show is all about. This show is intended to help people who don't just want to do genealogy as an academic discipline, but those who want to earn a living at genealogy as a career. I'm still working on that myself. We're learning together. It is possible for us to have careers as full-time genealogists, and we just need to keep plugging forward. We need to change the paradigm. Sometimes there's a lot of resistance to the idea of a genealogy career. Because genealogy is both a hobby and a profession, there is a wide sentiment that everything should be free. You heard Cyndi say that she was working 12-hour days, and those were days she wasn't getting paid by anyone. And it's the same thing with my podcast. So it's our job to figure out how we can provide content and services that people want to have, while at the same time making it sustainable for us. I don't think anyone has found the magic solution yet, but we're working on it. But it's hard. When people are paying $4 for a Starbucks coffee every day or going to the movies every week, but when it comes to genealogy, they expect to get everything for free. It's our reality in our field. That's just the way it is. I'm trying to get my energy back, and I'm trying to get creative about how I can provide products and services to help fund the podcast and the other work I do. You've heard me mention how I'm now offering downloadable webinars and a Work with Marian consulting feature on my website. That's all intended to help me get on the right track. One of the things I've done in the meantime to take the pressure off myself is to get a part-time job. I've started working 20 hours a week to take the financial pressure off. That's a reality for many of us. By working those 20 hours, it leaves me with 20 hours to continue with my podcasts and other genealogy and house history projects, and to continue to grow my own business. It means less time for my business overall, but it's more financially sustainable. I'll tell you more about that job in the coming weeks. Anyway, so that's the backstory of why the podcast has slowed down. That's my reality, and I'm working, just like you are, to make a go of this and to find that balance and try to be successful. I know I've been talking a lot here, but I'm not going to let you away without an action item. Cyndi had talked about how she had received 600 emails a day and how she addressed that by creating an FAQ, a frequently asked questions section. Your task is to think about the questions that people often ask you. They could be questions about your contracts, billing, project research, or even your areas of specialization. Figure out what you are answering over and over and create an FAQ on your website to slow down the emails that are asking you those same questions over and over again. All right then, until next week, so long.